Good afternoon, everyone. Consequence of the Street Life, Season 6, Episode 2. We are 100 Years Enterprise. But before we go into our next guest, my name is Fahim.
I'm Dante.
I'm Patrick.
And Mr. Patrick, please introduce our next guest, will you?
Yeah, I was able to connect with this, nice-looking young lady, and we connected with some powerful things she told me about herself, and I thought it was a thrill to have her on our show. So I'm gonna read off some about her bio, just let the audience know a little bit about her before she speak. Ebony Antoinette, right?
Antoine.
Antoine. I want to make sure I get that right. Okay. Ebony Antoine has made it her life's work to help encourage and heal community broken by violence, which is her associated organization, Broken by Violence. She understands the grief and trauma associated with losing a loved ones to gun violence and is now dedicating her life to supporting survivors broken by violence, and is now raising awareness to mental health issues in communities plagued by violence. So, just to start off what I read, give us a little bit more detail about your organization and why you're here.
Well, I created Broken by Violence in 2017 because in a span of 90 days in 2010, I lost my husband and my brother to gun violence. At that time, it caught me off guard, of course. We never was in no street life. We knew about it. We were raised in Oakland, but we were God-fearing, like chasing the American dream. And so when I lost my husband, it really caught me off guard. And I had 3 small children, so I needed to figure out a way to support my children. But I knew first things first, I needed to make sure that I had the mental capacity in order to process what had happened to us. This particular crime happened at our home. My husband was a witness to a crime. So, culturally, we say we leave no witnesses, but we also don't pay attention to the families we destroy by standing on those models in our community, right? So, woke up one morning and I was a widow, a single mother of 3, homeless, traumatized, and I thought the state would have resources to help me put one foot in front of the other to provide the services I needed or the care my kids deserved, right? And unfortunately, I had a lot of denials of services, a lot of red tape, and after I finally fought and got some mental health services, I then determined that this wasn't just for me. It wasn't just an ironic situation that I was fighting, that a lot of people in our community fight these same injustices. And so I decided to create a program that will support families after they lose loved ones tragically, because murder rates are up and we'll lose our children. Like, if we really don't get what we need,
Absolutely,
we'll lose our children. So that was my life. That's what I made my life's plan, right?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
How long did it take you, or did it take the system to recognize you for missing the lack of services which you knew you needed for you and your family?
Whew. Honestly, some of the services I didn't know about until I started advocating, like for Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. In 2017 is when I found out that there was a benefit that would be afforded to me that's a loss of support if you lose the provider of the household, right? And this is how the state did me, right? My husband had been off work 38 days before his murder because he had scoliosis and he hurt himself. And the state said, if you are not currently working at the time of your death, then your family does not get that $70,000.
Can I stop you right there? Now, the state said one thing, but what about the benefit package from his job? What's supposed to be afforded to his next of kin with you being his wife?
I battled that. I got nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Social Security kicked in, of course, right? But what we don't pay attention to is if you had a lot of kids, you got to split that up per child, right? So I have 3 in my household, and there was 3 outside of my household prior to us being together. So a little bit next to nothing, dust yourself off and figure it out. I think that's what the state compensation is. But I believe that God allows certain things happen to me because I'm a fighter.
Absolutely.
So we currently have a bill, hopefully we'll go into legislation this July, that says as long as you work one day, or it might be 3 days that year, then you still will get the loss of support. So we're really praying and pushing to have that signed into law in July of 2024.
Okay.
Miss Ebony, I just want to say thank you for attending this podcast. I do want to extend my condolence. I know it's been years to extend my condolence
Thank you.
because don't nobody deserve to be taken away by gun violence.
Thank you.
I was once behind gun violence, and so having you on, this is very necessary, so we can let these youngsters know that when you pull a trigger, you're not just destroying your life, but you're destroying the victim's family as well as the victims, as well as your community. So we most definitely, truly thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to that, it's for generations, right? Because my kids, they didn't have their father. My kids, when they have kids, they won't have no pawpaw. You know what I mean? They got to keep telling this story when their kids ask. So, like, when we really think about the generations that affects, right?
Yes.
And looking from you guys' standpoints, how many family members did y'all lose while y'all were in,
Yes.
So everyone loses, and
Yes.
it's unfortunate to cause that much pain to somebody that looks like us.
Yes.
Right? It can't
Yes.
be them against us and then us against us.
Yes. Thank you.
Again, we will reiterate what Dante said about appreciate you coming on, but I have a particular question. I remember when I first, I don't think it was a formal introduction, but it was in passing. I think we was at somewhere in Oakland,
Yeah.
and
Empowerment group for the
and
Prosecution Alliance.
Prosecution Alliance, exactly.
yeah, and I think I did introduce myself to you, and I think that from what the impression I got from you was that us being from incarcerated, coming out, doing the kind of awareness that we was pushing, right, was more so kind of like glossing over the victims, right? And I think you had you took a step back. I won't say, I don't know what you was thinking, but it was more so, I think I tried to shake your hand. It was just like, you shook it, but it was like, yeah, so I want to go back to that because I think it's important because we come across each other again and we kind of find we have a lot in common and we got a common goal, right? And it takes us to learn how to communicate with one another, right? And it was no wrong in that, what happened. It was just an aha moment for both of us to understand because you led me to believe. I said, dang, yeah, that's, you represent the victim. I have to figure out a way how to approach, the people, the victims, to let them know that I understand where they're coming from, even though I was behind the gun of hurting someone. So kind of elaborate, if you can, just a little bit, what was that moment like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I can only be me. My experiences lead me to feel the way I do about certain things. And in my particular case, I felt like I was victimized by the system, by the shooter, and then by the criminal justice system because no one was ever held accountable, right? And I feel like a lot of people, like in Alameda County, you got a 70% chance to get away with murder, right? Because they only prosecuting like 30 cases. There's so many unsolved homicides, right? My crime happened in Stockton. I really don't know what their rate is, right? But I just feel like we do a lot of legislation as it comes to the inhumane conditions inside of prisons, right?
Yeah.
And understandably, right? And I know it's systemic, and I understand, our communities, but I grew up in these same communities. My husband grew up in these same communities, and we chose different, and we still ended up being a product of our environment, right? And so at that time, honestly, and I believe it's all God, I had never been into a prison, right? And since then, I've been into a bunch of them, right? Right. So, it changes. I understand that, honestly, the first time I ever had anyone really hold my story and apologize to me for the harm that was caused, and I felt it, carried me, held my pain, was in San Quentin doing a surrogate dialogue with Men Collaborative, right, an organization I also work for, doing victim offender dialogues. But all that to say is that this journey of healing has taken me in different spaces to understand different things. And so I just honestly, at that point when I met you, I was just like, we advocate for, a lot of different things with different organizations, but I really don't never see the real change and support that comes in to support families, and again, selfishly, mine, right? So, I commend you, gentlemen, for doing the work you're doing. There's a lane for everybody. And that's what I've realized is that, you caused harm, and it's your job to make amends, right?
Yes.
In spite of what you endured inside, because I know it was horrific, right? And since then, I think that's what God has broadened my horizon to see, right? There are no winners. And even though I'm a victim, you guys may have caused harm, but you guys are also victims. And I don't know, just figuring out how that works together.
It's a trip because I got that from you, right? I'm saying I'm so in tune with the emotional intelligence of a thing, right? I got that. And that's why I kind of bagged up. I was like, okay. Because I shook several, it was like 4 or 5 you got.
Right.
When I shook your hand, you kind of, and I knew then, I said, okay, I know that's part of it, right? And I respect it. So I want to commend you too, because you help me be a better person at the body work that I do and be more genuine at that, because you have victims that was hurt, that and that we cause that's that ripple effect I'm talking about.
Agreed.
So I just appreciate your story. I just want that to be highlighted.
Yeah, well, let me reiterate, because I didn't want it to be like I said back, but in that there was a lot of formerly incarcerated people that was up front,
There was a lot.
talking about the harm they cause boldly, right? And then talking about the work they do, and they are really being funded to do this work.
Right.
Where I'm here picking up pennies, and I've put over $100,000 of my own money in the past 7 years to help survivors, right? I work 6-7 days a week. I work 10-12 hours a day. And I feel like I don't get that same notoriety. I don't get to beat on my chest and talk about the harm that's happened to me, and now you fund it. So it wasn't personal. It was just honestly repetitive that day.
Most definitely. Right?
And so personally, I felt like, okay, well, when do I get an opportunity to really just to lead the work? Because it's your story, but it's also mine. So it wasn't personal. It was exhaustion. That particular day.
Most definitely.
So when you said boldly, that they was talking about the harm to themselves or to the victims?
They were actually presenters.
Okay.
One particular organization that presented had talked about the crime they did. And to me, I don't know. To me, it didn't come off with compassion. Like, you gentlemen, I sat here with you, and I feel like you guys hold my pain. And there is sincerity. Not to say it wasn't with the presenter that particular day, but it was real puffed up. You know what I mean? And again, I'm only me.
Yes.
I want things to look a particular way based on the experiences I've had.
Yes.
And so it may work for others and may not offend others. But I mean, again, like, I help mothers bury their children, right? I help wives pick up the last pieces of their husbands.
Yes.
I watch raise 3 by myself that have no father. So sometimes, you know what I mean? I understand your choices have caused you to sit down for decades and be taken away from your kids too, but I think it's the way it's done. I think a sincerity that needs to come forth. It's a heart thing more than anything, right? Shouldn't be so boastful sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. I was there that day.
Yes.
I was there, and sit back, was very meticulous in my watch, and when you see Rob Bonta, he spoke, Diane Beckham, she came and left real quick, not really embracing the victims, what the program was supposed to be about.
Okay.
And when you have a platform of men who committed crimes and not really understanding who they talking in front of. And I think that's what was missing when you don't know how to engage and know who you're talking in front of when you're talking about certain things, what you have done, right? And you being a victim of many crimes, and we, again, commend you, sister, for coming on here.
Thank you.
Because it takes a lot of courage to come on any show, to start any platform, to give your all, right? To become vulnerable, to do those things. Because when you have a young mother whose love has been extracted, not because she wanted to happen, because she had to wake up and hear certain things and get a phone call, say, damn, my husband ain't here now, my son is gone, or brother is gone, for whatever reasons. And then you may have men who talking about the things what they have done. But one thing about 100 Years Enterprise, we understand the impact of our choices, of our wrongdoing. So when we talk, we don't boast, we talk about what we done, what we have done. We know we done, we give, and that's what we talk about the amends that Patrick mentioned, because amends is not in your talk, it's in your action, it's in the work and those who you help change. and we thank you for what you do.
And I want to add something to that too, because the clarity is important.
Okay.
Clarity, right? We all healing. We all trying to heal,
Right.
right? So, I feel your pain because it's like when I made amends for myself, not telling myself that I'd never do that again, right? Everything. I lost my son. So that was God's way of showing me too, my junior, right? And I was in prison. I was getting ready to come home, right? And then homicide come in there and pulled me out and said, your father, Patrick DeMarco Scott Jr. I said, yeah. Well, he got murdered, right? And it's still unsolved. It happened in 2018, and it took me so deep, right, that I had to have therapy. I'm talking about so deep that my counselor, the warden told my counselor, if he don't get therapy, we're not letting him out, right? And this was 2018. I got out in 2020. And the mother of my child right now is, it's hard for me to even talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And so, that whole window that I was down, I never got a chance to spend time with my son on the streets. I never got, you know what I mean? He can't see me with a little child in prison, but I never got a chance to do that. So when you tell your story, I understand it completely, right? And I hate I had to go through that, right? But like I always tell people, that's the ripple effect, is this. Just because you change your life, that don't mean it's not gonna happen to you. You just do the best you can, right? And that's how I had to absorb it. I couldn't go into it better, because I could have reverted back. That little
Easily.
thing, right? But I just want to say again, to reiterate what we're saying, is that we need to have social groups where we talk about that. Even if a victim gets mad, they have the right to feel mad about the situation, because it's a real thing, right? That really happened. That's part of trauma. Get mad and then learn how to work through your anger, right, to get to a point of healing.
Okay.
So I appreciate that, and I like you being authentic and like that. I feel it. You know what I mean? You made me take a step back, but I just want to say, thank you for coming and
Thank
sharing
you.
your story with us too.
And let me say, I'm sorry for your loss. I think a lot of the times we compare, like, the craziness in our community is, like, I often hear people say, you lost your husband, but I lost a child and you don't know that pain. And my thing is, grief is the price of love. A lot of people don't understand that. Based on how you love, I'm sure you had visions of coming home and being with your son, and instantly that was taken from you, and you had to process. And so I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah, and I think we definitely need to figure out a way to, like, broaden our approach in how we cause harm to each other, right? Because, I mean, man, it's a hard thing. And you're right, it could have easily swept you the other way. And you could have been plotting the last 2 years you was in there to avenge, right? But instead it sounded like you got that therapy. You started healing, which is necessary. You know what I mean? It's necessary to pour out your heart and talk about those things that plague it, right? In order to come out and be new, right? Renew your heart. I think that's what therapy does, It
does.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Miss Ebony. You believe in restorative justice?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Let me go all the way back from when I went to YA for 90 days and talked to I think she was a social worker, caseworker, counselor. And she asked me, she said, well, Mr. Gaines, if you could do this all over again, what would you do? And I looked at that lady in her eyes and said I would do the same thing. So I still didn't get it. But it took a lady named Cheryl Kaiser to experience some very painful trauma in her life. She lost her husband, got killed. They raped her daughter with a shotgun. And she used to come share her story with us at a program called VORG, Victims Offender Reconciliation Group in Solano. And when I heard her story, I looked at myself and I was like, well, who would do something like that? And it was a guy that was in that program with me that did that. And she always came and shared her story, but she always said, I forgave them, I forgive them. And their family was able to come together and talk and cry and hug, and that changed the way I thought. That changed my whole everything. And it made me realize that the impact that I had on my community, on my victims, as well as their families. And I took that and I told myself, if I ever got out of prison, I want to be able to find a victim's family or somebody and just let them know how truly sorry I am, because I was lost. And there's a lot of kids don't have any emotional feelings, because at the time I committed my crime, I felt I had to do it. But now, it shouldn't have been done, because a 12-year-old boy lost his life. And that's when I was telling you earlier, I'm still sad, because they did not have the chance to live the full potential of their life. And I look at myself today. I own a home. I don't care nothing about none of that. All the stuff that I got, I don't care nothing about none of that, because I really can't enjoy it, because I know I affected a lot of people, and I took something away from that 12-year-old boy. I took something away from his family. So now, what I did do when I finally came home, I connected with one of the victim's family. We went to the crime scene. She asked me all these different questions. I was very honest with her. And she said, Dante, would you be willing to go to the gravesite? And I looked at it and I said, yeah, because that's how serious I was about my remorse, about the pain that I've caused somebody else. And see, when we mentor these kids, we let them know it's a different side. Because if you can't feel, then I don't care if I kill you. I don't care if I kill your husband or your daughter or your son. I don't have any feelings. So we're trying to get them to feel and understand that this is just way bigger than you. It's way bigger than because somebody, how they looked at you, and you want to go knock them down. Way bigger than that. Because guess what? The same pain that you causing somebody, you're going to cause your family the same pain. So like I said again, I can say it until we end this podcast, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Yes,
I take
ma'am.
it hard. That's hard. I do the victim offender dialogues, and there's so much healing in that, right?
Yes.
I think the struggles of our community, we turn a black heart. We don't care about nothing. But it does take a special person that can tap in and get past it.
Yes.
And then I think that's when the healing starts. Is that it's a heart connection, right? And yeah, so I honestly, I just did, I was in Chowchilla a couple of weekends ago, and I shared just 5 minutes of my story, and the women, man, was telling me about their crimes, naming the victims, and I mean the tears, like, you know what I mean? You have no idea. And so I'm spiritual, and I remember my favorite scripture was the plans that the devil had to destroy you, that God will make for your good. And so I've realized that it is the hardest thing thus far that I had to do is to bury my husband and raise my kids by myself. But I want to endure that pain by myself. I'm able to pour out and let people hold space for me and hold some of that pain for me as well. So continue doing the work you're doing. I want to get into the juvenile system because I believe if we can change their heart there, then maybe they won't go into the penitentiary. And it's about finding people that they can relate to, people that looks like them, people that have a compelling story. And that's how we change it. It's a hard thing.
Yes, ma'am.
It is. You know, with women being the burden barrier of civilization, right? The burden barrier, you have to carry a lot of unwanted weight at that.
Agreed.
And, you know, God tells us in the scripture that He will not place a burden on us greater than we can bear. Some people can't really understand that part of the scripture, you know, but being able to carry that burden of losing two people, husband, brother, and being able to tell the story. How long did it take you to say, I want to be able to just talk about it? Because I know once it happened, you couldn't just talk about it. So how long did it take? Because you had to carry it. You had to find out the insurances, the money, the burial. Probably you had to deal with family members coming at you crazy. I know that happens.
For sure.
You had to deal with you had to carry a whole lot. How long did it take?
The ironic part is that I feel like it's so much negativity that comes with gun violence, right? Especially in the way I lost my husband. So I actually told everybody he died in a car accident because I didn't want the stigma of what gun violence is. What was he into? You know, and our community is ugly. You know what I mean? We put a jacket on a person that and they don't deserve.
Absolutely.
So I remember, again, being spiritually going to church, sitting in that third row for years, and like, God, what do I do with this? And I remember that God won't put more on you than you can bear.
Yes.
And the thing is He will, but not more that He's willing to bear for you.
Exactly.
Right?
Because you do your part, He gonna do the rest.
Amen. Right. And so when I kept asking, what would you have me do? He said, own your story. Right. So I would say it took me at least 5 years. Right? At least 5 years to really just say, this is what happened to me and my family. And then that's when he kept saying, open your mouth. And I hate public speaking. I was telling Pat that, like, I don't want to speak, you know. And God kept saying, open your mouth. And the more I talked, even with the anxiety, the crying and the tears and the gospel playing to go speak with the mayor in Oakland and, you know, sit at tables like this, I would do it anyway. Obedience is better than sacrifice, right?
Yes.
So I call myself just being obedient. Every time God was like, all right, next level. Next level. So I can say, honestly, maybe the past maybe 18 months is where I'm just like, okay, I'm going. And it's not as much anxiety.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it took me 5 to accept the story. It took me 7 to open the second organization because, again, I just really thought that I was that special to God. I would require no work. It just, people would hear my story and pour money in, but I was completely off base. You know what I mean? He made faith without works is dead. So,
Man, absolutely. Absolutely.
He, she that knows themselves know their Lord, right? So I say that to say that goes back to what Fahim told me when I first got out. When we did our first podcast. We weren't even 100 years yet. And he said, man, we can go do a podcast. I talked to my wife, let's do a podcast. I'm fresh out. It's relative to what you're saying. I'm bringing you to this point. And I was like, man, what are we going to talk about? I just got out from doing 31 years. What the hell? What I'm going to talk about? He said, just talk. Because we already did the work. It's already in you. That's the God. When you do the work, it's part of God's plan. So when you open your mouth, it's going to reveal what you know. So I didn't understand that then. He said, just talk. I said, talk? He said, just talk. Because whatever you say is going to back up the work that you already done or continuously doing. So that's like I told you. He was like, man, I don't really like that. I said, just talk. Just talk. Because you already here. You already doing the work.
right.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So, you know.
But I think it's iron sharpens iron because you had somebody pouring into you, telling you, hey, just talk.
Right.
I had to pour into myself.
Right.
I had to really listen to the whispers from God to encourage me. But sometimes it should come from somebody in human form to remind you what you're capable of. Somebody to create an outlet when you get home to catch you from falling. And so that's what we really need is a brotherhood and a sisterhood because we count each other out. Nobody... I mean, man, we do each other so wrong, but it's a blessing to see the support you three have. Right.
Absolutely.
So, spirituality. So when you go in and do the healing, do God comes up?
He always come up in my story.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope to one day create a program connected directly from Broken by Violence so that we can lead it with God.
Yes.
Right? Because I feel like nothing happens without God's approval.
Yes.
So if you cause harm and you in that room or you in that circle, whether it be San Quentin, Susanville, Pelican Bay, there's a reason why you're there. You're going to have interactions with people. You're going to build relationships. You know what I mean? And nothing wasted.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's my goal one day, to create it, but lead it with God.
The reason why I pose that question is because spiritually seem like we are dead. Spiritually. A lot of folks that I've, talked, you never even hear, sometimes you don't even hear the word of God, or you don't even pray no more. We don't even bless our food no more. So I mean, growing up for me, that's all I heard was God. Make sure we make our prayers, make sure that we bless the food. But at this day and time, I don't hear any of that. It's like, so that's why I was asking, does that come up when you going inside the prisons and talking about healing? Because it starts with God first.
The ironic part is when we go into San Quentin, we have it in the chapel, right?
Okay. Yes.
So, I mean, it's powerful to have that. But, I mean, I also understand that in suffering, it's hard to believe and trust in God.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think for the first maybe 60 days, I was mad at God, right? And I'll never forget, I was going to a women's retreat with my church that I used to attend, and one of the elders, as we was riding up to Tahoe, tapped me on my shoulder and said, I heard about what happened to your husband, and I'm sorry. But I was in church maybe about a week before that, and I came late, so I only caught a piece of it. And the evangelist said, God can't stop all bad things from happening, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, cool, that's comfort to my spirit. So when the elder from the church said, I'm sorry, and I tapped her back and I said, God can't stop all bad things from happening. And she said, yes, he can, because he's God. And when I say that I had the hardest time on that mountaintop, I was upset because I knew that to be true.
Yes.
But I had to soothe my spirit with whatever was going to help. And I think at that time I had a moment with God, and he said, still trust me, despite what you're dealing with, right? I promise you. I promise I'm going to bless you. You know what I mean? And so here I am. And I'm telling you, like, I got a praise report. My daughter is first generation, graduated from college. My son is on his way. He's 19. My youngest, who was 1, is now finna be 16. Like, I raised some stellar children with God, right?
Absolutely.
He was the co-parent. And, he will be a father to the fatherless and a husband to the widow.
Yes.
So it's some things we can still stand on, right?
Yes.
So we really got to still remember that God is God, even in our darkest moments.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, unfair, unjust,
Yes.
but
Indeed.
God is still
Most
God.
He tells us that he allows a thing to happen and he wills a thing to happen. So those are two different things. So the allow, something is going to happen, because we say he's an all-knowing.
Right.
So in Arabic we say he's alameen, right? He's an all-knowing, he's an all-seeing, right? So before we hear the analogy, it was written. Right. So he knows what's about to happen. He can stop it or prevent it or allow it to happen. So in that moment of allowing, he know what we do not know. And that's when we come to trust in the process. Heartfelt and hurting as it may be, right? And that was, 16 years ago?
It'll be 14.
14 years ago in May?
Yeah.
So now, we know what he allowed. We know what he willed. So today, what is he allowing you to do? What are you doing today with your work?
Man, listen, I am able to really help people. Like, seriously, it's nothing like being a credible messenger. I can't nobody walk you through the loss that's attached to the trauma of gun violence, right? That's abrupt, here today, gone tomorrow, with destruction, other than somebody can say that 10 toes down stood in it, right? That build kids out of it. So it's possible. My goal was really to find one person that had went through such a horrific thing and came out with a story that was worthy of praise, right?
Yes.
And I can't say that I've met anybody, but I created myself in that, right? So, I mean, I have my own organization. I am the executive director. I have a strong board. I've got contracts where I can write my own checks, right?
Give a shout out to who you.
Yeah. Well, a couple of organizations that I work for, I've been able to do some work and help support Alameda County District Attorney's Office. I am connected to Vallejo PD. I'm connected to the City of Vallejo. I now have a contract providing restorative services in the after-school program in a marginalized community. I've been a partner with Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice for about 5 years. I mean, God has really used my pain and turned it into the promise to continue to pour back into our communities. So I'm excited about what the future holds. So this is just where we're at now, 7 years. Wait till about 17.
That's
Imagine.
what I'm talking about.
So if anyone want to find you, where can they find you at?
BrokenByViolence.com is our website. You can follow me on Instagram at broken_by_violence. You can follow me on Facebook at Broken by Violence.
Okay.
Thank you. We want to give a shout out before we go. Give a shout out to Chevron. All right, one of our sponsors.
All right. Well, I'll just say one more time.
Just let me say this. I'm gonna let you in.
Go ahead. No, I'm
I
good.
just want to say we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And most definitely you are needed. You know, we all are needed because we can't do it all by ourselves. You know, we got to look at both sides because it ain't about me going to prison and getting myself together. I still got a debt to society. I still owe, and I'm gonna make sure I pay it. So thank you again.
Thank you. I look forward to a collaborative effort. I think us together are powerful, right?
Yes,
we come
ma'am.
with different
Yes, ma'am.
points of views and man, the collaboration, that's what we need to do more in our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to what Fahim said about God wills a thing. All this happened before a reason. So we just, continue to build and keep good relations and move forward. Our stories are something that we hold dear to, and we use them to help other people navigate their life. So, pleasing that may sound, I'm just going to say, I'm humbled by your presence, about what you said. It humbles me and it allows me to say, I got to go to work. I got to start digging, dig even more, So I'll let DT close us out, man, because I closed out the last one. You close us out big time.
Okay, once again, we want to thank Miss Ebony, 100 Years Enterprise. You can find us at the YouTube channel, 100 Years Enterprise. You can find us at DLP, Instagram, Spotify. What else, Fi?
You find us on Spotify. Hit our webpage, 100years.biz. Patreon coming soon. Apple Podcasts. Many different platforms. We also got to acknowledge my man Gabe behind the camera.
Yes.
G26 Productions be doing a good job with the season 6 Consequences of the Street Life. We gonna keep on pulling and grabbing his youth, grabbing those who've been affected by the senseless gun violence. As the sisters just said, Ebony, again, thank you for coming to the show.
Yes.
Because we have to do everything we can in a collaborative effort. Because we can't do it. We can't do it alone. We need everyone. 10 toes on the ground, like you just said, and let's see what we can do. Grab these kids where they smile when they come out the womb. And again, we know women, they bearing too much. And it's being a lack of accountability from men. We got to really step up and do the things what we doing. That's why we behind the microphones doing it. And again, you got something else to say, my brother?
All I got to say is, man, shout out to Broken by Violence. Continue to support the young lady Ebony. She's a fighter, so continue to do that. We need a lot more women to align themselves with her and do more work, collaborate, and spread out. So again, 100 Years Enterprise.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
You never did say why you brought her to the show, though.
I did. I said it at the beginning, but I'll say it again.
Yeah.
Okay. I brought her to the show because me and her talked. We had touched on some things. And again, I hit her with, man, I just need you to talk. Come on our show and share your story because your story is your glory.
Yeah.
So that's the whole key why I asked her to come on the show. Is that okay with you?
Story needed?
Her story needed because she did to show that no matter what happens in your life, right, God is good.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And you're going to keep fighting. Because the fight is the real challenge.
It's a challenge.
Right?
It's real.
We ain't coming in here on no magic carpet ride.
No, sir.
Right? Real life, real stories. So
Okay.
that's why. So again, I'll close out with 100 Years Enterprise and Broken by Violence.
There it is. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks a wrap.
Peace.